let go of all that we know and dance in the stardust gentle flow. Dancing in
Welcome
the
back to the Pause
stardust,
Straight Up. I'm your host, Shannon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really glad that you're here. What is this podcast about? Well, it's a podcast for us middle aged ladies who are just trying to get through the day. I know you know what I mean. Why is it called the Pause Straight Up? Well, I kind of had the idea that maybe you'd want to pour yourself a drink at the end of a long day and put your feet up and listen to somebody else kind of complain about their existence and maybe feel a little bit of connection there. So, if that is you, you're in the right place. Pour yourself, I don't know, my drink of choice is a whiskey on the rocks when things get really tough, but you do not have to drink alcohol to be here. You could make yourself a really nice cup of tea right now. I love tea. What's your favorite tea? Right now, I'm drinking some very special Danish Christmas tea that one of my old roommates and very good friends got for me on her trip to Denmark. She's Danish. She went there for Christmas. So I got a little bit of fancy, sort of spiced Christmas tea in my cup right now, and it is delicious. So whether you are drinking tea or you are sitting there with an ice cold beer, or you just mixed up a dirty martini, you are most welcome here. So let's get started. Listen, this has been an incredibly rough previous few days. I obviously am an American, and living in this country right now is very traumatizing existence currently. I really don't know any other word for it. If you're somebody who is a left leaning person in any capacity, or to be honest with you, if you're somebody who just has basic human empathy and decency, it's really tough. This has been the last few days have been especially difficult. Alex Pretti, who lost his life this past weekend, was executed in the streets by government officials, and he was trying to protect a woman from getting pepper sprayed. He was an ICU nurse at the VA, somebody who was exercising his First Amendment rights, somebody who was exercising his Second Amendment rights. He had a concealed carry permit and he had a gun on him, and exercising all of his rights to just be a citizen in this country, filming police activity and protecting others. And he was murdered for that. It was an incredibly difficult thing to witness, and I didn't even feel like making an episode today, if I'm being honest, because I didn't know that I had much to kind of contribute or be excited about on any subject other than politics. And as I said in previous episodes, I don't intend for this podcast to be a political podcast in particular, but it's really impossible for me not to say anything. As I said again already, I've said I am a Democrat. That's how I was raised. My whole family are Democrats. And I understand if you are somebody who would never vote for a Democrat. I'm not saying that Democrats are perfect, extremely far from it. But if you don't align with at least the basic values of we have the right to free speech, we have the freedom of assembly, we have the freedom to carry a weapon if you want. That is something the founders put in. I'm not saying if I agree or disagree with the broad way with which that has been applied across society. However, it exists as a right in this country. You also have the right not to be arrested for the color of your skin or the accent that you have. If you don't align with those things, if you think it's okay to pull people out of their cars and put their face in the ground and your knee on their back and treat them like an animal just because they have an overstayed visa or they are in process on their asylum application and they came here legally and you want them to go out and come in the right way. Well, I have news for you. That is one of the right ways. And anyway, if you don't align with those things, you're not in the right spot, because while it might be limiting for me, I know people would say, hey, you're just starting a podcast. Why on earth would you limit your audience? I absolutely get that, and no judgment whatsoever to people who produce content that just don't want to comment on what's going on for whatever reason. No judgment at all. but I don't feel like I could uh, build a community with people that I didn't fundamentally feel like aligned with my values in at least some way. And so I hope you'll understand that. No hard feelings. If you aren't interested, um, you can find another podcast. There are millions. But for me, at this time, in this place, this is what I'm thinking about. And it's my podcast. So I guess what I'm saying is if you don't like it, fuck off. But if you do like it, if this does align with you, please stick around because we won't always talk about politics. We will be mostly talking about our experiences as middle aged women and navigating through all the issues that we have. But at this moment, there really is nothing else that I'm interested in talking about today. So, for our main segment today, I thought we could kind of talk about the role of middle aged women like us in what's happening right now in terms of support, protesting, and how we can help out in this situation. So I think it's pretty well documented from what I can see, just in casual videos I've seen of protests, not just this past weekend, but at pretty much all protests. I've seen so many middle aged ladies out there fighting the good fight. I'm so proud of us. Like, and even if you are not on the front lines, if you're not able to be, you probably are doing something in your community or with your platform, whatever you might have, doing something that is within your abilities. I myself find it very frustrating because by my nature, I want to go and protest and have a sign and be there providing support as much as I can in person. Unfortunately for me, my husband is a naturalized immigrant and it's just too risky for me to go out. I can't even believe I have to say that in this country, that I wouldn't want to create any problems that could ultimately lead to an issue for my husband. I mean, we're law abiding citizens. He, quote unquote, came here the right way. We did all the steps, everything was approved. He's never had even a parking ticket in this country, et cetera, et cetera. But it still feels very uncertain and very dangerous. And also, I really don't want to get tear gassed by my own government. I also would very much like to not get shot in the face for existing. So I personally have not gone out to a protest, and I have a lot of guilt over that. I wish that I could deeply. After being in conversation with my husband, with my family, we made the choice not to participate in protests in person. So, what have I been doing instead? I have been actively posting in my private accounts to share news with people that are too overwhelmed to keep up with the news. And I'm talking about my personal friends and family. My personal social media is not open to anybody that I do not know personally. So it's very private community for me there. But I know that a lot of my friends and family just don't have the energy to keep up with what's going on. I mean, I barely have the energy to read yet another horrifying news story every day that I wake up. It's something more ridiculous and awful than the day before. I truly don't know how we're going to keep going like this. I don't think humans are designed to be taking on this kind of incredible onslaught of anxiety on a daily basis and worry and dread for the future. I saw a tweet the other day that said something like, the worst thing this administration has done to young people, and to be honest, I think it's to everybody, is to remove the capability to even imagine a good future for yourself at this point. Now, those of us who are older, I think it's even worse, honestly, because we are, well, personally, I'm 48. And if you're in midlife, let's just say you're 40 plus. How many great years do I have left? That's what I keep thinking. How many years have been stolen from me from being so nervous and anxious and wondering what the future holds? And all of these things I think have been taken from us as older people. It isn't just younger people not being prepared to go out into the world wondering what in God's name is going to happen. I think those of us who are older are wondering, holy shit, where do we go from here? because I mean, I don't have money in the stock market because I'm a broke bitch who spent my time overseas gallivanting around and not saving anything for retirement. So I'm in that position. But like, let's say you do have good savings, you've been investing. What if the market crashes because of all this nonsense? Tariffs are causing problems. The market is volatile. Things are up and down. I can't imagine the stress of being like, well, I've done my part. I've done absolutely everything they told me to do. I saved. I got my 401k. I did this, that, and the other in terms of investment. And now it could be wiped away because of one completely irresponsible person who doesn't care at all about the ramifications of his decisions. The people working in his administration simply do not give a shit about the common person, no matter what they might say. We all know they truly don't care. They can't envision a life, even as a middle class person. Can you imagine our president just going shopping for groceries a day in his life? Can't can't envision that. Worrying about the price of bread, never a day in his existence. So, like, if you think he cares about you, he doesn't, number one. And so I can't imagine being in that position of truly thinking all your savings could be decimated. My mom is in that position. She worked as a teacher and a school administrator for her entire career. She has great savings because those teacher retirement plans are pretty solid where she's from back in Iowa. So, and then she became an administrator, and their plans are even better for savings. So she is looking at the reality of, oh shit, I am in my mid 70s. What happens if a quarter of my retirement money is just wiped out? Right. So this is something very stressful that is for those of you who have saved up. Now, I don't have the issue of worrying about my savings in particular, but I do have the immigration issue that is a big one for me. And also, just the fact that we have to bear witness to the depraved indifference of the people who are out there working for ICE. Okay, let me just say it. Fuck ICE. I hate them. And I wouldn't hate them if they just followed the Constitution. Is that so much to ask? If they treated people with basic decency and humanity, if they weren't looking like a Gestapo 2.0, although I did see some people saying online it's really not just like the Gestapo. In fact, I saw several Black women content creators saying this is more like slave patrols trying to round up people who had escaped. And that, honestly, that tracks. And it's disgusting. It's even more disgusting to think about it like that. But I do tend to be kind of in a liberal bubble. We all know our algorithms bubble wrap us with opinions that they already know we're going to agree with. And then I think they do put in some stuff there just to rile you up, just to get your engagement because every now and then Facebook will prompt me with something in my feed that's just ridiculous and something I would obviously be completely opposed to. So I think they're trying to trigger me. Good luck, Facebook. I know what you're up to, and I'm not falling for it. But I think that it's just overwhelming, right? So to get back to how are we dealing with this? I don't know about you, but for me, I tend to do all the doom scrolling in the world. I realize fully this is not a healthy mechanism whatsoever. It doesn't help my emotional or mental state in the slightest. But at the same time, I simply cannot accept the idea of just turning a blind eye because it upsets me. I think we do have to take breaks, though. And that is important. This past weekend, kind of threw my own goals for this year sort of out the window because I was trying very much to limit myself to not using my phone. I had like my little app, I think I mentioned it last time maybe, that was limiting how much screen time I would have, especially like on specifically on Facebook and Instagram. These are the two big offenders for me. But last weekend, I just turned that shit off and I said, nope, I need to see every single thing that's coming out about Alex Pretti's murder and execution. So it was a depressing weekend. Every new angle that came out, it's so obvious what happened. And then I do try to get out of that algorithm by belonging to a couple groups that have a mix of folks in them that aren't just strictly liberal groups on Facebook. So, for example, I follow a true crime podcast. I won't name it here, but it features people who have worked with law enforcement in an official capacity. And when first started listening to them, I really did think they were liberal because they never talked politics. The true crime space is clearly a much more liberal space and also heavily dominated by women. So usually you can kind of be in those spaces and feel safe as somebody who is left leaning that you're not going to be subjected to a bunch of shitty opinions by people who think this whole thing is great. But in this one group that I belong to, there is definitely a mix of folks because it turned out those hosts actually weren't liberal. They actually are extremely conservative. And they don't bring politics directly into their podcast at all. I have to applaud them for that. I do think they do a great job. I do still listen to them. It was stomach turning to me when I found out who they were in real life. This was kind of more towards the beginning of their podcast before like it was widely known who they were. And so I had to make a choice. Am I going to keep listening to them? Am I not? Am I going to still be in their like fan group on Facebook? And ultimately, I did decide for my own better and like understanding of what's going on around me, especially after Trump had gotten elected, and it was a shock to so many of us. I said, you know what? I'm going to stick around. I like their content. I'm not going to, because I was on the verge of paying for their Patreon, because I do believe in supporting content creators like that I really love. Ultimately, I decided I'm not going to give you cash money. I'm happy just giving you my clicks and my ears to listen to what you have to say. Staying in that group has been so eye-opening to me because I've seen people they have a rule no politics. And I think that a lot of groups have that rule. But in true crime, you do kind of get some groups where they allow politics and it's all very liberal politics, right? I'm thinking of groups like the I Think Not podcast that sprung out of True Crime Obsessed, which that is a shit shambles to talk about on a different day. But I was originally a fan of that podcast and then got into the other one and very liberal community over there. And so I was kind of used to that. And then now in this group, there will be people who are extremely conservative. And although there's a rule against politics, recently they've kind of let some things through because, the country is in a fucking uproar. It's so many people are completely disgusted by what's happening. So I think they kind of had to let a little bit of that in there. They probably were getting deluged with posts, right? So I've seen some posts from Trump supporters in there, people who think I should be rounding up triple the numbers they're doing. The whole like comply and you won't die vibe, which is abhorrent and goes against every single thing that conservatives have been preaching for years and years and years. And just the hypocrisy. That's probably the worst thing for me, the absolute and utter shameless hypocrisy of the right. But anyway, seeing that has really opened my eyes to how we might, like, where we might go from here. And I'll be honest, I don't have high hopes because if you're in a cult and it blinds you to seeing the basic facts in front of you, which is that I watched that video, all the different angles of that man getting murdered, and there is no doubt. There is simply no doubt. Trust your eyes. Trust what you are seeing. From every single angle, there's no doubt that man was murdered. And they removed his gun before they shot him in the back like 10 times. It's insane that this is happening in this country. It's even crazier that there are people advocating for this and even more, who are twisting themselves in pretzels to be able to explain it and justify it. Meanwhile, the head of DHS is on TV calling him a terrorist, that he's ready to like create a mass attack. He's just being slandered. This man who's just basically lived a good life helping others, doing everything that these folks supposedly value in somebody, and even showing up with a gun, which is another value that they supposedly embrace. No, 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 no. You can't do that all of a sudden. No guns allowed. Oh my goodness. So I exhausted myself mentally going through all of that this weekend, as I'm sure many of you did. And I asked myself, what can I really do beyond sharing the news, beyond like kind of being that conduit for people who don't have the energy to stay in touch with everything that's going on. So I did some Googling to find some different organizations to help with. Now, I'm already familiar with doing things like I used to do when I lived in Iowa, because, it's the first state to caucus. And so we always have political folks coming around to Iowa, and they are constantly calling you and trying to get you to volunteer XYZ. And so I have filled out postcards. That's something my mom does. Filling out postcards to encourage people to vote or to show up to a protest, for example. I've made the phone calls. That is something that I am planning to start doing where I live for the upcoming midterms. One thing I would also like to say is just that you can donate money. Don't be upset if you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, you're not able to go in person. There are so many different things you can do. If you just got cash, bro, donate the cash. Ma'am, write the check. That helps so, so much. And you don't need to feel guilty if that's all you're doing. Personally, I donate regularly to the ACLU. I pay for subscriptions to news like The Atlantic, for example. I try to subscribe to individual content creators to support them in their efforts to bring like breaking news, that I'm not depending on legacy media, who I feel has just been absolutely failing us in this regard. Like, they've never challenged Trump on any of his policies significantly. I mean, please, $1 million to the journalist who calls him a liar on live TV and just says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Please, my kingdom for somebody to say, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" But I did do some other Googling, and I found a few things I would like to recommend and that I'll certainly be checking into. Number one, if you're not already supporting the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, please do that. They're the ones who are bringing lawsuits against the administration. They're the people who are really supporting those whose rights have been violated. Their entire job is to defend the Bill of Rights, and they are out there doing it every day, and they are overwhelmed. So put them at the top of your list for donations, for any kind of support you can provide them. There's one group, though, that I didn't realize existed, and I love it. It's called the National Lawyers Guild, which is the first group, because the American Bar Association existed first, but they were not integrated in terms of race. And so the National Lawyers Guild, it was the first integrated association for lawyers, and they, have that amazing history behind them. And what they do is they will go to protests and be observers to see if people's legal rights are being violated, and then pursue action from there. So you can go to their website. I'm going to put the links in the notes for this episode for all of these things, so you don't have to write it down right now. One other great campaign, or organization rather, is Campaign Zero, and their entire objective is to reduce police violence. And we all know police are out there doing a job that most of us would not want to do. It is very dangerous, it is very risky. And I do have a lot of respect for police officers. I know some personally who are dedicated public servants. And I think the best police officers are the ones who did get in it to actually help people. And I know those guys, and I applaud their efforts. However, I think that we all are on the same page these days that police have been abusing their power over people of color, over immigrants, over women for decades and decades and decades and decades, if not literally hundreds of years, as long as they've existed, and creating a lot of violence against those groups in particular. And we just didn't really know about it until it suddenly became extremely easy to record them doing their jobs, right? Now we can see the proof. And even when there is proof, people twist themselves up to deny that the police have ever done anything wrong. So I'm not one of those people. I think the police often have a lot to answer for. If you are a true crime fan like me, you will no doubt be very familiar with cases where the police absolutely just destroyed any possibility of putting together a case, right? Look at Ellen Greenberg. I'm not going to go on that one, any more detail on that, but like, when they mess up a case, it has ramifications. When they are negligent, it has ramifications. When they are violent, it is unacceptable. So it is called Campaign Zero. Give them a Google. They're out there doing good work, trying to keep police from, literally abusing us in the streets. Another group that I really love the mission for is street medics. Now, this is done in like a state by state basis. So I found one for like my local chapter, and it's basically people who volunteer to provide first aid in different types of situations, like protests, for example. So they're not out there to be on the front lines. They are there to treat those who maybe have been, hit with some tear gas or rubber bullets or something like that. So they are also doing great work. Please Google them to see if there's a local chapter that you could either volunteer with or provide assistance to financially or in some other way. Similarly, there are things you can Google in terms of mutual aid, and this is kind of like directories that connect people to help each other. It's not just one organization where you can go and just click and find a list, but if you Google mutual aid near you, you should be able to find some resources for that. This is like helping, like, you give rides to people, for example, to the protest. Maybe you're not comfortable standing in the front lines, but you got a minivan. You can take people to the protest, right? Like this kind of help. I can bring warm drinks on a cold protest evening like this. In terms of immigration in particular, there is a wonderful organization called United We Dream. They are youth led advocates for immigration. For example, they did a lot of good work on getting DACA passed for dreamers who were brought to this country as young children and want to become US citizens. So they do a lot of great work. So, United We Dream, excellent. And then you probably have heard, if you're interested in politics at all, you've probably heard of groups like Indivisible. They have a lot of kits that you can get, like for calling, for organizing. They can help you figure out who is your representative so that you can call them up and give them hell and leave messages. They say that this is the most important thing, if you're not going to be on the front lines, that you should call your senators, call your representatives, leave a message that they do have people tallying those up. And if they get enough people in opposition to something, that might impact how they vote. Now, maybe. I don't know. I feel a little jaded on that one because, like, one of my senators is Ted Cruz. And do I think that he gives two fucks about any of his constituents that disagree with his own personal agenda? I do not. Okay. I think I could call and leave him 75 messages, and every other resident in the state of Texas could call and leave him 150 messages, and it would not make a difference. So there's that to consider. But at the end of the day, you never know. And it takes just a few minutes. You should do that, right? If you're feeling helpless, which so many of us do, these are just a few things that you could look into. You don't even need a proper organization to tell you what to do. If you know that there's going to be a protest near you and you don't necessarily want to be on the front lines, again, bring some warm beverages, bring some snacks, show up with some first aid supplies. You don't need permission or a group to tell you what to do. You have humanity within yourself and you know what people might need. You can show up and provide that. I really hope that we're able to come together to support the overarching dream of this country, which is that all people are created equal and that we are entitled to these rights that the founding fathers came up with to protect us. I mean, of course, it turns out their great idea of checks and balances maybe wasn't so great. Turns out that was more just like a gentleman's agreement all this time. But at the end of the day, we have a Bill of Rights. It's being infringed, and it's our job to not let that happen. To the extent which we are able to empower ourselves to go out and support the changes that need to happen, to support the people who are on those front lines, to maybe be the people on those front lines. As middle-aged women, we are so skilled. We have so many things to offer. We are great at organizing, even if perimenopause has your brain in an absolute fucking fog. Believe me, been there, still in it. But we might be great with spreadsheets. If you're great with organizing mailing lists, maybe you mastered all of that at your job. You know how to, I don't know, use Excel to do a mail merge, which is something I have yet to personally master. More of a Word girl than an Excel girl, personally. You have something, you have a skill that can be used in this capacity to help preserve our union here, Because for the first time in my life, it genuinely feels at risk to me. And I hate that. Now it's time for my favorite segment, which is Escape Plan. And this week, I don't really want to talk about kind of jetting off somewhere and daydreaming about being on a beach, but rather the things that we can do to take a break from witnessing the horrors that are going on around us now. I think this is easier said than done to a large extent. So let me just say what I'm going to try to do in order to take a step back when I'm ready for that break in the news cycle. For me, what I have started doing is reading just for fun. Now, I know I already have a goal of reading for fun. It's been hit or miss for me. But when I am really trying to just simply exclude the world as it exists from my consciousness, there is nothing better than sitting down and reading a book. So, what I've been working on reading recently is The Blackbird Oracle, which is the next book in the series, which I don't know if you've seen. It's been on, I think it was on Netflix, question mark, called A Discovery of Witches. Don't know if you're familiar with that. It started as a trilogy and is one of my favorite series of all time. I'm kind of into that stuff. I'd love to read about some rich ass vampires and some exciting witches who learn new stuff. And in one of the books, she gets to go back in time. Like, it's super cool. As somebody who loves history, I really enjoyed it. And this is one of the new book that the author Deborah Harkness she put out. Has it been 2 years ago now, possibly? And I bought it immediately, right? But I've been delaying and delaying and delaying reading it because I just don't want it to be over. And I don't know why I torture myself like this. She is working on other books. Like, there is going to be a new book that's coming. So, like, I don't need to ration this out. It's not like there'll never be another one. So, I've been trying to read that more. I had started it and kind of just put it on the back burner. So I've been reading that. I've been loving it. So highly recommend the All Souls. Is it All Souls World or All Souls Universe, if you will? That kind of encompasses all the books. The very first one to read is called A Discovery of Witches. It is so good. And I have it on audiobook and I listen to it. And I often listen to it actually to fall asleep too. It's a great one, just like as a comfort book to fall asleep to. Another thing I've been doing is watching those movie reaction channels. I personally love Real Review HQ. These two dudes are genuinely sweet, green flag guys all the way through. I love them. I subscribe to them with cash money. I'm on their Patreon and fully escape from real life when I'm watching them watch a movie. I don't know. This is twisted. This is modern idea of escape, but how many times have I watched them go through, I don't even know, the Harry Potter series? They were delightful to watch with that, as one example. Or even Twilight. They did all the Twilight films. They've done Pride and Prejudice. They've done Sense and Sensibility. They are a treat. So I recommend them so much for escaping from the daily life that we're all going through. Another thing that I do like is to go for a walk when I can get my ass out of my house. Recently, it snowed. As we're all aware, there was like a snowmageddon winter storm across all the South this week, and I am in Texas. So I haven't been able to go out, but getting just like fresh air into my lungs shocks my brain into just remembering, hey, we have a beautiful country here. Life is also beautiful. There's a lot of things positive going on. And not everything is focused on what's happening on the internet or the horrors in certain areas of the country right now in particular. We can find very good things around us. Another way I escape is also by cooking. I love cooking. It's one of my true loves, especially baking. I try to avoid baking now because I'm on my weight loss journey. I'm trying to get that last 20, whatever. But I do love cooking Moroccan food, especially for my husband, Italian food for me. So I've been doing that lately. And I think I might maybe I'll make some bread coming up this weekend. Last weekend, I made chili, I made cornbread, and the cornbread turned out like shit. I don't know why. Usually it's pretty good, but I used a box Jiffy mix and I just kind of zhuzhed it up a little bit and I put in some of these like candied jalapeno slices you can just get in the jar at the store, which are normally extremely good. Love those on pizza, for example, when you're making homemade pizza. But for whatever reason, they just became extremely bitter and ruined my entire cornbread. I was devastated. But so yeah, just like something homey, something comforting. That is how I'm escaping this week. And now for our last segment, something that I didn't actually hate this week. And I would have to say that is the fact that it feels like maybe we're at a turning point now. Maybe so many people were just absolutely shocked by what happened to Alex, by the absolute indefensible nature of it, and yet that the administration did go on TV immediately and try to defend it and just slander and libel his name. I think that just put so many people in a position of, I can't defend that. I can't say that they're even vaguely right. I also saw that even groups like the NRA came out against statements made all the way up to and including the president saying, you don't have the right to bring a gun to a protest. And them saying, excuse us, but actually, yes, you do. And I saw posts from like the libertarian parties also, defending gun rights and such. So I don't know, but I feel a little bit hopeful, and that made me feel great this week. I don't have an excuse to just like throw my hands up and give up on this place completely. I do feel the hope coming back to me just a little bit, and I very much love that. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Pause Straight Up this week. Thank you again for tuning in. It's been a stressful and kind of rough period of time, and I'm glad that you were here to listen to me go on and on about it. I appreciate
and
you. Thank you
dance
for
in the
listening,
stardust
and
gentle
I'll see you
flow.
next Tuesday.
Dancing